Hey everybody, it's Mike Sullivan with Born to Shine. Today we have a really cool guest who surfs, which I think is awesome. His name is Jason Hasty, and he is the superintendent over in Beverly Hills at Beverly Hills Unified. And Jason, thanks, man, for making time for us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Just a correction. I'm the interim superintendent as of today. So just right now.
Got it.
I tell everybody I never in a million years thought I would be doing the job that I'm doing now. I started off in Indianapolis, Indiana, where we had no surfing. And it was, it again, went to Catholic school K through 12, and then I ended up, going to school at Ball State University. But yeah, sure enough, someone contacted me out in California, Pasadena High School.
Mm.
And they had gone to Ball State, and they always had this vision that they would get a Ball State grad to come to Pasadena High School one day. And next thing you know, I was teaching in Pasadena High School, and I knew no one, and so I had to not only figure out and navigate a whole new world, city, culture,
Mm.
life. It was incredible, but sure enough. Was there for 6 years and did everything under the sun from coaching football. I taught English intervention. I was a induction teacher mentor where I was training new teachers as well in those 6 years. Coached track as well, and it
Mm.
was just I was one of those teachers that tried to just take on everything I could to learn as much as I could. One of my other favorite programs was Upward Bound, where we were working during breaks and in summer. I would help out at Cal State Los Angeles, where we would be working with kids that were first generation college goers. They were on that track, and so got experience doing that as well. From there, had the opportunity to move to England with my wife. We got married and moved there, and I actually taught in England for 4 years. And I went from being in Pasadena, having this certain life, and next thing you know, I'm in northern England, near Leeds, by York in that area, and I was in a British classroom learning curriculum on the fly. And
Mm.
I will say the most interesting thing I could say is teaching To Kill a Mockingbird to a group of year 11s, set one. And if you're it's that's their honors or AP group. It was just like an experience you could just never imagine. And it was really cool to really just break down content of that nature from my perspective and hear their perspective on these items, that material. And then, of course, went from there, came back, got a job again. It was during 2010, when we were experiencing a lot of layoffs in education. And I just took a swing and was like, oh, I'm going to go for this dean position, or it was, at a charter school. And I didn't even think I would get it, and I wasn't really expecting to. And sure enough, it was the one call I got at the time when I was not able to find a teaching job. And
Mm.
next thing you know, I'm working with, at Promise Youth, that were mainly gang involved. And it was just so eye-opening for me and just a quick, amazing learning experience. And I had a alternative ed program there, which was about 3 classrooms. And by the fourth year there, I was the principal of the entire school for what had 18 school sites and a
Mm.
total of 1,400 students. And so in that short time I was there, we were able to bring the total enrollment to the highest in the school in that school's history. And so I felt like I was doing something right at that point, and then had an opportunity to go to the Los Angeles County Office of Education.
Mm.
And there, I oversaw curriculum and instruction for the school programs that they ran. And the type of schools they ran were incarcerated settings. That was one. So we had juvenile halls and detention camps for minors. And
Mm.
we also had county community schools for students who were behind in credits and expelled as well from schools. And then I also had, we had two specialized high schools, which were the only type in the state, where one was the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts, which
Mm.
in my time there became the #1 public and private art school in the country. And we also had and it was co-located at Cal State LA. And then we also had International Polytechnic High School, which is a project-based learning 21st century school, which I was able to work directly with that school, which is co-located at Cal Poly Pomona. So we had this really wide variety of schools, and I just got an incredible experience working close by with principals, and then eventually became the executive director and overseeing all the principals and directors, along with the special ed program there as well. And I couldn't have asked for a better environment and a better learning experience and a better opportunity to really make impact for students' lives. And sure enough, as usual, I wanted to do something different. Somebody, we had an opening in HR, and I asked if I could help out. And next thing you know, I was executive director of HR for the Los Angeles County Office of Education. I did that for about a year, and then wanted to learn something new as usual. And I had one gap, which was the business office, and I really felt that that was the one key piece in education that I just wasn't really clear about, and they really came together with strategic planning and really making visions come to fruition. So went through the USC program, again, earned a doctorate there, but also went and did my California School Business Certificate program there, where then I had to take a test, got what's called a CASBO, California School Business Official Certificate, passed the test. And I then went to Wiseburn Unified School District, which is also the authorizer for the Da Vinci Charter Schools,
Oh, El
which are
Segundo.
yeah, in El Segundo. And so
Yeah.
I was lucky enough just to get an amazing opportunity to learn and build and have, and again, an impact in a whole different realm, which was school business. And so in that time there, we were able to, I oversaw the first issuance of a series on a bond. So I got to oversee how a bond works.
Hmm.
And we just did so many incredible things in the time I was there. And then, of course, then this opportunity at Beverly Hills came up where it was actually the assistant super business services as well. And so next thing you know, I'm here at Beverly Hills, and then we did have a leadership change, and then I was asked just recently to be the interim superintendent. In the meantime, as we're searching for the next superintendent for Beverly Hills Unified School District.
That's so cool.
It's a crazy journey. I just
Yeah.
never ever thought from Indiana to Beverly Hills. That's how it happened.
That's awesome. And when you were K through 12 yourself, Jason, was there anything that you struggled with emotionally or mentally? Like for me, I was bullied in third grade, and that kind of opened up the predisposition I had in my family lineage for anxiety and depression. And it just, was a real struggle. I had big feelings in this little teeny body. Was there anything that you maybe struggled with when you were K-12?
Absolutely. There's a term back in the day called latchkey kids.
Mm.
I was one of those children that had the physical latchkey. I came home, and my parents worked very hard to make the life they made for me personally. But what happened is, and I just told the story a week ago, how much a teacher can truly make a change and impact, a lifelong change in a
Mm.
child. I just remember really that third grade year, I was coming into this third grade class,
Mm.
just not understanding where I was in the world.
Mm.
And I felt like I was behind all the students. I didn't have the ability. I didn't have the skills. And I just was in this world of confusion, and the adults around in that room were speaking in a certain way that I felt diminished,
Mm.
and I just felt devalued. And looking back and in hindsight, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, just what we say around these children is so critical, because I personally saw what that made me feel just looking at the world through those eyes of that 9-year old at the time.
Yeah.
But then I had this teacher, and she came in, and she just transformed me in my life. I went from just this student who was confused, who was not making the grade, to the first time seeing a report card with straight A's,
Mm.
and the built feeling of self-efficacy. And I've held myself to that simple standard even when I see educators now. And for me, the challenge, and again, that wasn't the only one, but that really changed for me, that one point where I realized how powerful adults are on that day-to-day basis in that room, because I did have to overcome that self-image of me not being successful. But from that point forth, I knew I had the ability. And of course, other challenges along the way there have always been, but I've been able to, like, always, because of that time, I know if I put enough work in, if I find the right people, if I really practice hard enough, that I can overcome any challenge, because it happened, and it happened at 9 years old. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I tell that story over and over again. And again, the educators in the room do make a difference. That can last a lifetime and really change and help the children overcome things, that will affect them for the rest of their lives.
And what that's thank you for sharing that. That's great, because it is true that to steal a line from there's a youth speaker out there. His name is Josh Ship, and like a ship, Shipp. And he said every child is one caring adult away from becoming a
From a
success story,
success.
right?
Yes,
And
I've
so
heard him
that's
speak live. Yes.
yeah, and that's great. It's so true, and that's what that teacher was to you, Jason, right?
Yeah,
So,
it actually, and it was to my father.
oh,
My father has the same story where I'm like, how did you end up on a college track? And it was one
yeah,
teacher in eighth grade that
yeah,
said, you should be in these classes and not those classes. It was just the simplest little discussion that was less than 5 minutes,
right.
and then
Lifelong impact,
it really changes his trajectory to get a college degree one day,
right?
and he ended up doing three. So
Wow.
it's just, but if everyone around him that were put in that other category we did not end up in the same place.
Yeah, it's incredible. The power of our words, right? And encouragement
Yes.
can go a
Yes.
long way. And speaking of that, what's something that you'd like to see more of, right? Every school has the counselors and the psychologists and the SEL team, but is there something in addition to that that maybe you'd like to see more of in the coming year to support your students with their
Yeah,
mental
I think
health?
the in talking to the parents and just and being a parent,
Hmm.
that's the other thing. I've always talked about what makes a successful classroom.
Mm.
And when we walk into a classroom, I used to say this to all the teachers I worked with, and I still work with. I say a child should come into the classroom and be able to hear and know what they're supposed to do. They
Mm.
should be able to see somewhere what they're supposed to do, and they should be able to look beside them and see a level of modeling that is
Mm.
also modeling what they're supposed to be doing.
Mm.
Those three components of triangulation. So, and I talk a lot about that. That's like the foundational piece, and then we get into the articulation of the journey. And so I had this talk with parents just today, and they were requesting this, and I'm like, you're right. Like we need to do this, but really, us as adults and children, when you're looking at the journey ahead, it's incumbent upon the adults, and this is what I really want to see across the board, where I'm at and in the future, is just the articulation of the path and the logic as to what are the benchmarks. That's we talk about a staircase of complexity in math with Common Core, but it
Mm.
goes way beyond that. Today there was a conversation about robotics. It's like, what are we doing in first grade to get to the highest level possible by 12th grade for a robotics competition that will take you to a championship? Well, it needs to start with a couple of things. Again, what do you see? What are the modeling? And so we can start with the Legos, but who's teaching? What are the kids at that level coming down to? And so that articulation is something that I really focus on. So we have a clear journey and pathway that is taking students to where they need to be, but we can all see it and we're measuring the benchmarks across along the way. I think we have statutory requirements that put books in place, that
Mm.
discipline in place, and all these pieces. But it's really that vision piece to show, to really articulate, where the journey is going and the pathways. And so that's the one piece I think that many times we get into our silo, if you will, and we are following this path, but we're not really seeing the light and where we're ending up. So what happens are people get tripped up and they don't come back to that intention, or what is the essential question as to where my pathway is going. And so if we're not having deliberate and intentional reflection and discussion around that, we lose our way a lot of times. And so that's one thing I'm really focusing in on in just all aspects of the district I serve right now. And just with whether it's budget, I'm always looking at the end user result and what's the ultimate goal, where we're going, and what are the steps to get us there so we're successful. So again, articulation, clear pathways to success, not only for it's for every stakeholder that has a part in this.
Yeah, I love it. And then if you had something on your heart, right? You're a dad. And
Hmm.
maybe to the dads out there or the moms or maybe the students, if a student's watching this, or maybe a parent, or your staff, is there anything that you'd like to encourage them with? Like whatever's on your heart, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, I think, I really believe in my journey. This has been a calling. I haven't just tried to become a superintendent. I really have been called to do this work. And I think hopefully and what's in my heart is the intention of this work and how serious and how meaningful and how impactful it is. And also, I bring it back to my personal experience in my transformation as well from that 9-year-old child to where I am now. And, if I could have known that journey and also where we're going to end up. So I think for parents too, and for me, I have my own children. I do look at the students in seats like my own children. I set that expectation, and anything below that is something that I'm going to set out to change or improve. And I think parents, what I would say is the right now isn't the entire journey. And so we just got to look at where are we trying to get, and and maybe there's going to be obviously some diversions, there's going to be some changes, but many of those diversions are what create greatness. And I tell everybody, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and most of 99% of what I'm asking and expecting is coming from wisdom because I've lived this journey and I've gotten there. So I tell parents all the time, the mistakes, the change in direction, that is so critical to the journey to be successful in the end. And so having patience and passion and kindness, and just really being forgiving,
Mm,
supporting is key. And it's hard when you have that emotional investment because you're looking at a reflection of yourself in real time. And so most of those emotions that bubble up tend to be reflections on ourselves and not always the child in front of us.
mm.
So that's my 2 cents, maybe
Love
maybe
that.
5 cents.
Yeah, no, Jason, that's great. 5 cents. I mean, forgiveness, huge. Kindness, huge. Patience, huge. It's okay to make mistakes. That's where the greatness happens, right? We see the divergence in path, as you said. So all that's where we're being shaped, right, to do what
Absolutely.
we're made to do. So thank you, Jason, for sharing your
You're
heart.
welcome.
And
You're
then
welcome. Thank you.